The Minerals and Petroleum Resources Minister, that Gwede Mantashe, he's just taken to the podium to deliver the keynote address at the Africa Oil Week conference taking place in Cape Town. These are live officials. Let's listen in.
Ministers present here, our Deputy Minister of Mineral and Petroleum Resources, Ms. Shabalala, captains of the industry, very important here, investors, members of the investment community broadly, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen present here today. It is an honor and privilege that I welcome you to South Africa and to the 30th edition of the African Oil Week Investing in Africa Energy Conference. One thing that we must remember, I think, is 30 years of the Africa Oil Week is 30 years of our freedom in South Africa. We fought for that freedom for 82 years before we attained it. 82 years, after 82 years, we got the freedom. We went through various phases. I won't bother you with that history. It's a long history. It went to deputation, memoranda, then armed struggle, and international isolation, and many, many aspects, and culminated in our freedom in 1994. Despite the sustained geopolitical tensions that remain a serious threat to global energy security, we gather here at a time when energy markets have improved, leading to the decrease of basic fuel prices for 5 months running. We pay attention to that because in our case, the price of fuel is part of the cost of living. If the fuel price goes up, the cost of living is increasing. It is not good for society. When it comes down 5 months running, we take note of that the price of oil has come down 3 months running, 5 months running. And to us, we appreciate that in terms of the cost of living. To make life more affordable for all South Africans, we have already begun a discussion about reducing administered prices, including price of fuel and electricity. Those are administered prices that the state must intervene to bring them down in the interest of society and community. That includes a discussion of whether it is wise. It is our situation, I don't know in other countries, where in the fuel price there is general fuel levy, there is the road accident fund linked to the price of fuel. So instead of buying a liter of fuel for 14 rand, you buy it for 20 rand. 6 rand go to the general levy and another part goes to the road accident fund. And our argument is, you are distorting the price of fuel. Let's find a formula of separating this and have price of fuel visible, and when there is intervention in fuel price, we can see it. We intend to conclude this discussion in the shortest possible time and look into the 3 priorities that our government of national unity has actually accepted to drive the inclusive economic growth and job creation, to reduce poverty and tackle high cost of living, to build capable and ethical and developmental state, because the state is a big partner in the management of the lives of our people. Notwithstanding the continuing political ideologies in the government, we are clear that energy is the flywheel that will propel South Africa to realize these priorities. As we continue to pursue security of energy supply and address energy poverty, diversified energy mix remains a requisite for our nation to meet the growing energy demands. We have not been converted fully to this thing of saying we'll move from coal to renewables. We are very committed to a mixture of energy sources. We think that a mixture of energy sources will help us reduce carbon emissions in a systematic way without the collapse of the energy supply and the energy security. So to us, energy security is quite critical. We are a country in Africa. We are striving for universal access to energy. We are at 93% access to electricity energy now in South Africa, and we're working very hard to achieve universal access to energy. But there's an issue there. The price of electricity is beginning to be a factor in terms of real accessibility of that electricity. Although the consumption of crude oil broke through the 100 million barrels per day level in 2023, as quantified by the 73rd edition of the Energy Institute Statistical Review of the World Energy, our experience over the past 5 years has proven to us that petroleum sector has been running second fiddle to other sources of energy, and in particular renewable energies. When we talk energy, 70% of the time is spent on moving to renewable energy, triple it, grow it, and so forth. And other sources of energy have played a second fiddle. And when we separated our department and established the Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources, one of the issues that was at the center of that discussion was that petroleum must be given its recognition. It must be elevated to its rightful place. It is a source of 60% of our energy sources in the country. It can't play a second fiddle to other sources of energy. It must be debated as a very critical component of the energy sources. Now, as part of government concerted effort to provide orderly development of the country, petroleum resources, ensure equitable access, and promote participation of physically disadvantaged persons in the sector, the department developed an upstream petroleum resource development bill, which has since been adopted by both houses of parliament in South Africa and is ready for being signed into law by the president. And that act is so important to us because upstream petroleum resource development bill is establishing petroleum as an independent sector of the economy. It's not an appendage of mining. Mining is a sector, petroleum is a sector, and we're busy developing that in full. And this is the first of its kind in South African history, as upstream petroleum industry has always been regulated as an appendage to other industries. We are convinced that once the bill is enacted into law, it will not only pave way for orderly development of the upstream petroleum industry, but will boost the country's economic growth to 8%. I'm one of the few people who are convinced that if we make a breakthrough on the petroleum sector, will break the mood of being a low economic growth economy. We can grow between 5 and 8% per annum in the GDP because this sector, oil and gas, are quite critical for development. Then we can have discussion about other aspects of fossil fuel. Attempt to ban coal and ban fossil fuels didn't succeed. And the only way it didn't succeed is that people realize that you don't switch off what you have with the hope that you'll get new technology. You prove the new technology, you test its reliance, you test its reliability, and then you can move to new technology before you unbundle the old technology. So everybody realizes that fossil fuels are going to be with us a long time, coal is going to be with us a long time, while we are moving to new technologies for cleaner energy. Now, additional, the Petroleum Amendment Bill, Petroleum Products Amendment Bill, is also undergoing cabinet process for approval to publish stakeholder comments. Because one thing about democracy, it's a very painful thing, but very exciting, is that you can't just pass laws as you wish. You draft laws, you test those laws with the community a public consultation. If you have not done it, you short-circuit it, your bill gets sent back to you. So we're busy with the stakeholder engagement in this. We want to promote transformation of petroleum and liquid fuel sector by encouraging participation and equity. Secondly, to ensure that people involved in manufacturing and sales of liquid fuels are regulated. And lastly, to ensure that petroleum sector contribute to the country's economic development. There's one aspect that is unique to our country, I would imagine, and the rest of the continent, is the first that we are coming from a past where black South Africans were not regarded as citizens. They didn't participate in the economic activity of the country, and as we pass laws, we facilitate participation of blacks in the economy, and I think we're succeeding in that. It irritates sometimes to an investor, but we have to persuade every investor to appreciate that it is not it's not just a thing that you do. It is an imperative for the success of a business in the long term. Because if you marginalize 80% of the population, that business is running a big risk of being destabilized in the long term. So we're repeating this message over and over that let's allow black South Africans to participate in the economy. Let's begin to see. I normally tell people that if you talk about black economic empowerment, it's not about what is in the paper. I want to see evidence of black capitalists emerging from the system. Once you see those black capitalists emerging in the system is working. If there are no black capitalists emerging out of the system, it's theory. Now, in the past 2 years, Total Energies, Shell and Gulf have made 8 discoveries across the 3 blocks in Namibia Orange Basin, representing an estimated 3.5 billion barrels of potential recoverable oil. These discoveries have led to huge interest by major petroleum companies, since it is believed that Namibia discoveries may extend towards the south into South African waters. We're quite alive to that, and we're keen to see drilling coming to the South African waters and discover that oil. There's a big oil deposit in our waters that must be discovered. It can't stand in the waters of Namibia. And then there's the Orange River Basin. Then it dries up when it comes down. We are convinced that we have oil deposits. Investors must come and want them to drill and find that oil. Because that oil is really needed by us in South Africa as a country. And the discoveries of gas and condensate from 2 exploration wells drilled in Block 11 and 12 offshore South Antonequa Basin have also proven that South Africa underexplored deep waters have significant potential of oil and gas, thereby signaling a need to accelerate exploration efforts. Although Total has announced that they are exiting the blocks, here remains good potential for other oil and gas players to partner with the remaining operator, Main Street, and develop the block, contrary to the view that suggests Total's energy withdrawal from the block is tantamount to lack of confidence. I can assure you that that is not the issue. It is not the lack of confidence. The issue is that that company, it is encouraging that the company is major shareholder in 3 blocks in the north of South African Orange Basin. That is Total. So Total have not exited South Africa. It has exited a particular point of exploration. But it remains here, and it is actually drilling in the ultra-deep waters, and 100% shareholder on another large block that is 3 times the size of 11 and 12B South Antonequa. So we are talking to investors. Investors talk to us. There is a deposit that has been discovered. It is left by Total. Let's facilitate that discussion. That Total give it to another major gas producer. Additionally, several exploration projects in Southern Antonequa Basin are getting and gearing up for development, including preparation work for drilling exploration in Deepwater Orange Basin block operated by Total itself, including proposed drilling and exploration well with the option of drilling up to 4 additional wells in Block 3 and 4. The Northern Cape ultra-deepwater block has been started with environmental authorization process for drilling. The notable progress made in Block 5, 6, and 7, with potential to start drilling in the block in 2026, targeting large oil and gas resources. So we're not talking theory here, we're talking about practical deposits that are there. When an investor comes to talk to us, we'll point you to go to where these deposits are. And we're very alive to the fact that sometimes, as the state, we tend to think that deposit must belong to the state. We want to partner with investors, work to development. We are alive to the fact that no investor invests in mining and petroleum for the love of the game. Everybody who invests there wants to make money, generate income, and have returns on investment. So we are alive to that. It is not our aim to cut the profits. Our aim is that there must be development. That development will actually contribute to the development of the economy in the country. Broadly defined, not just profits. I always remind business people that even now, when the accounting stakeholders said government, business, and you listed them, there was one player that was left out: workers. And every investor must know, you invest, it is a worker who put the neck on the block to convert that investment into wealth. So we must not treat workers as others. They are part of the development of any deposit. The main interest or risk to this project being realized in South Africa remains, is a problem that we are attending to. Frivolous litigation against exploration and production of oil and gas by foreign funding lobby and non-governmental organizations. We are saying that because one of the suggestions we've made is that these NGOs, in South Africa, every political party declares source of funding. Every political party. We do that. I belong to the ANC. If you give us money, we declare it publicly. And we say NGOs must be made to declare they have source of funding, because you'll get foreign funding that is actually aimed deliberately at blocking development. And we have a responsibility to counter that and allow development to go. A balance by development and climate requirements. Protect the climate, do development. Not this or. Both of them, we need all of them. For example, this already affected 2 major seismic surveys to date, including Shell, which abandoned their survey and went to discover oil and gas in Namibia, as well as ENI, which was taken to court 47 times by NGOs. That's where we thought these NGOs must declare their source of funding. And left and went to discover huge quantities in Cote d'Ivoire. The successful trade seismic data acquisition in April this year by Searcher in South Africa's west coast has proven that exploration of oil resources can be done successfully without any harm to the environment. It must be done, don't harm the environment. Notwithstanding these challenges, there has also been growth in the harvest in the interest of offshore blocks, most targeted for shallow unconventional coal bed methane plays and biochemical gas. Additionally, South Africa also has exciting potential of shale gas play hosted in the Karoo Basin. Dry Karoo shale gas tested economical in terms of quantities. Up to 209 trillion cubic feet of gas estimated for development. There are potential opportunities for long-term cheaper indigenous gas supply from the Karoo Basin. that could contribute.
All right, word there from Minerals and Petroleum Resources Minister Gwede Mantashe delivering his keynote address at the Africa Oil Week conference currently underway in Cape Town. I thought it was actually worth your time to listen to what the minister had to say, especially when you consider what he's been saying. Gwede Mantashe is an interesting person to always watch because there are instances where you can see he veers off his speech, and what comes out of his mouth, I think, sometimes makes news. And part of that is he mentioned that government is now in talks to try and see if they can in any way reduce the price of petrol and electricity in the country. This comes off the back of increasing calls, of course, for the state to do something in order to curb the cost of living crisis. We know that, for example, the petrol price is usually an amalgamation of many other issues outside of how much it actually costs the state to get petrol, including levies around the road accident fund and other administrative costs. So he says they're looking at ways in which they could curb that, a response, I suppose, in some ways to calls from some activists. He also spoke emphatically about South Africa moving forward with an energy mix and not necessarily moving to renewable energy, at least in a less gradual way, for lack of a better term. He says coal is here to stay. You can't switch off the technology you have with the hopes of getting new technology. Another strong statement which I'm sure the market is going to be reflecting upon for quite some time. Gwede Mantashe also speaking about the effects of black economic empowerment. Of course, we know a lot of investors are at this conference. He says we can't talk about BEE if it doesn't produce industrialists, black industrialists or capitalists, I beg your pardon, which is quite a bombshell. This has been the argument that has been advanced, for example, by the DA for years when they've argued that BEE in our country doesn't work. It only benefits the elite few. It seems in some ways Gwede Mantashe is now echoing that sentiment to say that this thing cannot only work in theory. We need to start seeing the emergence of many other black capitalists in the country if we are to back this policy. And he also spoke about balancing climate change and development, which of course is a call that's been made by activists the world over. So plenty to take from what the minister has just said, and I imagine there's going to be a lot of reaction to it throughout the course of the morning. But that's us, at least for this hour. The day's top stories for you when I see you again at 10. Do stay with us.